let's jump into the topic here. So, Monolith Soft is working on the next Zelda. A lot of people kind of made this into a very newsworthy thing last week, and when I saw the news, I wasn't like, oh my god, Monolith Soft is working on the next Zelda. I was like, yeah, the next Zelda has been in development. We knew that.
Mm-hmm.
Monolith Soft worked on Breath of the Wild. They helped out the main Zelda team. They also helped with Skyward Sword. I think I even saw an article recently that they also helped out with A Link Between Worlds. Big shocker, they're helping out with the next one. So,
Right.
I didn't think it was newsworthy at first. But they are, I'll kind of read who they're hiring, just to kind of go over the news here. Let me see. Okay, so Monosoft is looking for the following candidates: a technical artist, programmers, planners, designers, and a project manager. And don't know everything about game development, but that sounds like everything. That sounds like everything. It sounds like they just kind of get a whole bolstering of the development team for this next project.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't really think much of it. Now there's some interesting things that have come up since then that I'll say, but I first want to get you guys' takes on this bit of news right here. What do you guys make of it?
I mean, it was as you said. I'm not super surprised. I looked at it, I was like, oh, wow, okay, that makes sense. I don't know. Maybe you could take implications of this and say, try to figure out where in development the game is, because I don't believe Monolith was working on Breath of the Wild during any of the planning stages or anything like that. They were kind of more towards the final stretch, just trying to get the game done. So maybe you could look at this and say, maybe Breath of the Wild's, maybe the sequel's pretty far in development, and maybe it could come out in 2 years or a year or so. Maybe this is indicating that we're in the getting sort of close to the final stretch, or at least the middle of the next Zelda development. But other than that, I'm not sure too much of what you could pull from this.
I like that take. I didn't consider that. I was thinking, well, they're hiring talent now. To me, I was almost saying, then maybe they're not really that far into development. But if what you're saying is true, and that the Monolith doesn't really come in until in the mid-cycle of the development, then the people they're hiring might just be for the aspects that they've been asked to work on, which could mean that that they are well into development, which I would have expected, because Breath of the Wild came out 2 years ago, right? I would imagine we should at least be a year into the development for the next Zelda game, at least a year, maybe more, right? So that actually gives me that's good news. I think you made a great point, Brandon, that they usually come in halfway through development, right? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I would imagine. That's what I remember from Breath of the Wild. Now, of course, this isn't hard facts because I don't know exactly when they came in, but they're at least done, I would assume, with all of their planning and development, because that's all done for the main Zelda team. Monolith Soft is just the hard work. They're just to get in there and make the vision that the Zelda team has already decided upon, and they don't do any of the design decisions.
Right.
For the most part, they help out a little bit, but
what they mostly do are the environments, right? You look at what they did with the Xenoblade games, right? Look at Xenoblade X, look at Xenoblade 2, look at Xenoblade 1. They were beautiful games with incredible landscapes, and Breath of the Wild is an incredible landscape. In terms of creating these landscapes, I think they're maybe the best in the industry. Their environments are so mountainous and stuff, but they look so unique and exotic, right? But also they feel like beautiful alien or fantasy worlds. I think they're amazing at doing that. So it's probably one of the main reasons why they keep helping out with these Zelda games, because they're so great at creating these giant, beautiful landscapes.
Yeah, I think they're definitely the best at making very exotic looking locations.
Yeah. So I would assume from this news, right, as I think you guys agree with me, that this is just status quo, right? Monolith Soft is helping with the next Zelda as they have with the previous Zeldas, right? Are we on the same page there, basically?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Yeah, kind of.
But I guess the one interesting point that you brought up, Brandon, is that they it could mean that they're in midway through development rather than early on, because Monolith Soft usually is the supplementary team, not the main team for the project usually.
Right.
Okay. I like that. I think that's cool, because I was thinking, maybe they're not that far into development when I first saw this. So I like that you made that point. But things get a little interesting when you look at some concept art that came from Monolith Soft in 2017 when they said they were going to work on a bold new project that may be different from the previous kind of games they made. They would have kind of like a different image for them, right? So, Game Explain covered this. They had some interesting theories that came from it, but I'm going to show you guys a couple images. The thumbnail had one of them, right? So hopefully you guys can see this relatively well. Yeah, you guys can see it. So, this image is interesting because one, now I don't know how well it's going to come out on the podcast, but Game Explain found that in the concept art, if you look carefully, there are actually Zelda Triforces and the actual, like, you know, like the bird symbol. They're all over. They're all over these ruins. This is a Monolith Soft game concept art from 2017 when they said they were working a bold new project. Okay, think about it. 2017. When did Breath of the Wild come out? 2017. So that's an interesting point, especially when this art literally has Triforces in it, right? But it gets even more interesting when you consider that this actually looks a lot like some things we've seen in both Skyward Sword and Breath of the Wild. Doesn't this look like the goddess statue?
It does. It looks very similar.
It really does. It's just kind of more like a realistic take. And when you take that into perspective, you know, we did see Link using clothes kind of like this, right? But we just kind of assumed it was more of like just your typical... This almost looks more like a Dark Souls kind of game, right? In terms of like the armorish kind of look. But now with this perspective, right, with this confirmation, which wasn't a surprise that Monolith Soft is working on like Zelda, but now we look at the concept art from almost 2 years ago, that they have Triforces and a goddess statue in their concept art. It's kind of crazy. But to add even more fuel to that fire, and by the way, this is not news I'm breaking, right? This is something that Game Explain reported, so I'm not trying to say this is my stuff. That they were the ones that pointed this out. This is another one, right? This is the other concept art. And at first, when we saw this, we talked about it. We thought it was interesting. We didn't think it was that big of a deal at the time, right? Because, you know, whatever. But she looks like Zelda. Like Warrior Princess Zelda. You know, she's got the blonde hair. She's got the sword. She's got a crown. It's interesting. People have been wanting Zelda to be more playable. What if this next Zelda game is being made by Monolith Soft, and they've been working on it for the last couple years, and this is concept art, which has Zelda, like, in warrior mode. That's kind of crazy, right? Like, are you guys feeling me here? Are you guys on the same wavelength as me, or are you guys not really feeling me? Where do you guys stand on this speculation, I guess you should call it?
I mean, it's hard to say. It does look like there could be, you know, Hylian crests on there, but I'm not sure if that means they're working on a Zelda game or not.
I mean, just to be clear, I feel like it's like 100%. It's like maybe because you should watch the Game Explain video, but when you like zoom in, like it's pretty obvious to me that these are Hylian crests with the Triforce on top of it. I don't think it's. I don't really think it's debatable. I mean, it's a little blurry, so I can see where you might make an argument, but I'm looking at it, and there's like 5 different ones, and it seems pretty clear to me. But again, that also, it is just concept art, right? Like, maybe they were just using Zelda as kind of like a mold for their next game, maybe, because they haven't worked on the next Zelda, the previous games, and they have multiple teams.
I just feel like that's such a big deal that I feel like they wouldn't reveal that in the concept art. Like, it's pretty obvious Zelda references in a concept art. It just doesn't. That'd be really weird for them to do that. But I mean, maybe it's a soft tease. It could be. I mean, it's possible they worked on several Zelda games, so they have the know-how. I'm just not convinced that that's what they're doing.
Just to be clear, I don't think that I'm not trying to suggest. Some people are. Some people are trying to suggest that this could mean Monolith Soft is developing Zelda on their own, or mostly on their own. I don't think it's that. I think it's still kind of like a supplementary thing, but maybe it's a bit more of a larger role than before, a bit more. That's what I would think, but it's still kind of like the Zelda team is still working on Zelda. The Zelda team hasn't stopped making Zelda. I don't think it's.
I mean, that's already confirmed. Back in It was like right after the DLC, the final DLC pack came out for Zelda. They confirmed that the Zelda team was working on the next one already, and had been for 3 months. So
I think it's certainly possible that Monolith could be working on something Zelda related at the very least, because we see it was at a Cadence of Hyrule. They're giving Zelda to an indie studio, so it is. I think it is very possible that Monolith, especially Monolith, out of all companies, would have some kind of shot at Zelda. I just don't know if it's a whole Zelda game specifically. Maybe a spin-off that takes place in a different perspective. Maybe something like that. I'm not even sure that even looks like Zelda to me. Even like I think that looks like a whole different character.
Okay.
But I do see the Triforce part of it that you and Game Explain mentioned. So I'm not totally against it, because again, the Triforce thing and the Cadence of Hyrule thing makes me think it's very possible Monolith could be working on Zelda. I just don't know, if it's a whole Zelda game in particular.
Right.
maybe they're working on a spin-off game more with the Xenoblade combat style, but with Zelda characters. More RPG, like Zelda game. I think that'd be really cool.
It'd be interesting, but my takeaway is that they're just working on the next Zelda with the Zelda team. I think it's just a dual team effort. That's what I think
that's what's most likely happen.
So that's really all it is. But I think the interesting take is that this concept art could give us a hint as to the direction for the next Zelda, right? Do you guys feel me there, maybe?
Honestly don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think by that time, this was like right after Breath of the Wild came out. I feel like they wouldn't have concept art for the next Zelda game already ready. Because they go through, when the first year, they just go through so many different ideas. I mean, we saw the concept art for Breath of the Wild. It's just so radically different from the actual game. I feel like finished concept art for the end of the...
Can we look at do you mean like the alien stuff?
Yeah. That's all concept art for Breath of the Wild. So I feel like concept art finished in 2017 that they were willing to release, that just doesn't sound like something they would ever do.
I would disagree a little bit. I think the concept art in Breath of the Wild was a marker for how the game would be. No, we didn't get actual UFOs in the game, but the style was very close to what we got to see in gameplay form in terms of the aesthetic. And while there wasn't UFOs, there was a very ancient alien-like technology inspiration with the Sheikah. Right, so I do think that concept art did translate into we eventually got to play. It wasn't like, oh, for sure this exact scene is going to be in the game, but it was. You can see where they went from that point, right, with their thinking. So I don't entirely disagree with you, but I'm just saying that while this art may not be like, oh, for sure the next Zelda is gonna have Zelda playable as a warrior princess, right? I don't know about that. But the aesthetic, right? I could see how maybe they could go in that direction.
I just feel like Nintendo wouldn't release concept art for that so early. Like concept art for Breath of the Wild didn't come out even till I think it was like 2016. We didn't see it till then.
We got concept art for Skyward Sword years in advance.
True, but that was like a reveal. This is just random. Stuff. This doesn't follow any principles that they would normally do. It just doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
Plus, if you kind of factor in some of the Breath of the Wild artwork was way off what Breath of the Wild ended up being. Like, remember the Guardian artwork, the ones that look kind of Lovecraftian in nature, like
the creepy bug stuff.
Yeah, like things like that.
I really wish they went with that. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's true. I want to pull that up again, actually. Just so we can show people
It's so scary.
What should I Google? Breath of the Wild concept art.
I mean, I'd be totally down if they used those designs for any reason, but
we definitely talked about this before. I'm just gonna put it up again, though. This is the one I'm pretty sure you're talking about right here. Like this looks like some horror stuff. Yeah. I would have loved to have seen that so much.
Then again, realistic designs like that could fit into the realistic looking design of the Monolith artwork.
Yeah. But then, I mean, we also had concept art like this, which is really cool, but it's not too far off from what we eventually got.
Right.
I would have liked to see those designs, right? Like this one's obviously like really close. Damn, but this one, look at the bird, right? It's like they look more like cities, you know? Like it almost looks like they had a really big ambition and they had to scale it down.
It's like they had a idea that the Sheikah would be living within them.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of concept art for Breath of the Wild that's like that. It's like even cooler than the actual game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. The idea phase, right? Like, it is the idea phase. So they're throwing out ideas. So, you know, my only point is that you look at that concept art, and I can, minus the horror one, because you're right on 100% on that one. That doesn't really. Maybe you could get into the whole bones thing, but it's not. That aesthetic is completely different. I agree with you there. But the other pieces of concept art, you can see where they went, but it wasn't exactly the same. So all I'm getting at is that maybe I'm hopeful, at least, because I want it, that this concept art could maybe be hinting that the next Zelda will be going more for a little bit more of a realistic route. Like,
I would like that.
Like, you know, it's always been fantasy medieval, right? I don't think that I would always define a Zelda game as fantasy medieval, but what's interesting is the Game Explain video, when they talked about this theory, they said, oh, it'd be really cool to see if the next Zelda game was fantasy medieval. A lot of people said the game's already fantasy medieval. I agree. However, I think what he meant was more of the traditional sort of realistic sort of medieval fantasy kind of game, which Zelda's not really gone for. And I'm not saying I want ultra realistic, but you know, maybe a little bit closer to like that Twilight Princess kind of demo where that was going a pseudo realism, I guess is the word I'm looking for.
What comes to mind too is that it looks like it could be more focused on actual war, because you never really like join Hyrule in a war against another country of some kind.
Right.
While in medieval fantasies, that's pretty common.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So and plus when you look at the artwork of that warrior woman, there's like banners of flags behind her, like rallying behind her too. So it could go in that direction too, I guess.
There's also another one. There's another concept art that they had that's actually, because that concept art you have is actually, it's like half of it. There's another top half with like a giant dragon flying overhead, which is really cool.
Yeah, it has a red dragon. Yeah, which maybe could be Velu or Volvagia, right? There's a few, or there's even Din Rall, right? There's several red dragons in Zelda. So those are all possibilities. I definitely like the idea of them going more into exploring like the history of war in Hyrule. Like, you had the whole Hyrule Civil War that was referenced in Ocarina of Time. Like, remember the well with all of the chains and the blood on the wall and the skeletons? I believe the theory is that those are Sheikah, right? It was a torture chamber. Like, there was it's interesting when you look at Breath of the Wild with all the ruins. Like, there's definitely different Zelda games have had nods towards war, right, and devastation, but you're right, we never actually get to see it. I would love it if there was a Zelda game that sort of took more place with that, right? And this Link that we had in Breath of the Wild was a knight, and normally they don't have, like, there have been Links that were knights, but usually they don't really get into the whole Link's ties to the actual like royalty of Hyrule. That's usually a rare thing they do with the Zelda games. So I would be really interested to see an actual Zelda game that did delve deeper into Link's like connection to the Hyrule family and him being a knight and maybe actually being involved with working with Hyrule and engaging in war for the kingdom. I would love to see that. Kind of basically what happened with Breath of the Wild before the events of Breath of the Wild, the actual prologue. That's what I would like to see for a Zelda game.
Right. Yeah, and I would think that would be a very interesting idea for a lot of different storylines too, because they could not even have Link involved at all. You could play as a knight in the Order who has to see Link from a different perspective or something.
That would be an interesting take. I would prefer to play as Link because I'm a fanboy.
Yeah, I want to play as Link.
Yeah. But I'm also, open to the idea of having multiple playable characters, right? Like, we kind of played around with that a little bit in Wind. I can't speak English. And with Wind Waker, right? With Medley and Maker. So I'm not opposed to the idea of maybe Link working with a few other people in the next game. Maybe Zelda will be a playable form, right? Maybe you'll be able to use her at certain times. Like, actually, to kind of delve deeper into this idea, what if Link is a commander, right? And he's mostly in charge. You do most of the exploration with him, but occasionally you have to Link. He makes some commands where you have to send some soldiers, some friends out to do other different tasks, and maybe this is how they open the door to have other playable characters in a Zelda game. How does that sound?
It'd be interesting.
It'd be a different take,
Yeah,
Right.
it kind of reminds me of I don't know if you guys played it on Ni no Kuni 2.
No.
Not played it.
It has like something like that where you play as the main character for pretty much the entire game, but there's little instances where you have to command troops and send them out and do different things like that.
Okay. Yeah, well, that definitely sounds like pretty much exactly what I'm talking about. So, I wouldn't mind it. I'd be into the idea of that at least. Is there anything else you guys sort of take from these pieces of concept art and this news of Monolith Soft working on the next Zelda, or have we pretty much sort of gone through it here?
My personal opinion is that this is not for a Zelda game. I think they're just making a Zelda-ish type game in their own style, a medieval type game, and they were just making references. That's what I personally believe, and I think that them working on the Zelda is just the normal, what they did with Breath of the Wild and Skyward Sword and Link Chain Worlds and stuff like that.
Okay. Crazy idea. It is a spin-off, but not quite. It's more like it's set in the Zelda world, and it's a medieval fantasy multiplayer game where it's like all about war.
Be fun.
Because the Monolith Soft the team's actually like they've played with the idea of MMO like qualities. Like look at Xenoblade X, right? What if they were to delve deeper in that direction, right? And then they use the Zelda IP, the Zelda world, to sort of flesh that out more. So it's not an actual Zelda game, right? It's kind of like the Cadence of Hyrule thing, right? Where they use some aspects of the Zelda universe for their game. I'd be interested to see that.
I mean, I was just gonna say I'd be open to it